Greetings, welcome to the Marketing Matters podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Atema.
Amatema Victoria.
Yes. So today, Vicky, we have a slow day in the newsroom and we shall cover just three main topics. Our first topic today is EU's Digital Markets Act claims another tech company. Supreme Court issues a landmark ruling, and we have a report on how the made for advertising websites are scamming advertisers. So let's just get things rolling and talk about the EU stuff. Now, if you follow us or you were with us last week, you know that we covered a topic about what the EU has been doing in the Digital Markets Act, and that time we were covering about what it was doing with Apple and the several legal complications that Apple was going to face. And if you have not watched it, please you can find maybe the link in the description, but we would urge you to watch that. But even if you have not watched it, it will not affect how you understand what we're talking about today. So Facebook and Instagram's pay or consent ad model has been found to be violating or is claimed to be violating the Digital Markets Act in the EU. Now, what is Facebook pay or consent? Now, what is happening is in EU, because of what we call the General Data Protection Act, the GDP, General Data Protection Regulations, the GDPR, Meta and almost all other tech companies were told that you have to either limit the content you are collecting from the EU users, or have them have an option to opt out. Now, what they did, or what Meta did, was they said, okay, that is fine, well and good. What we shall do is we shall allow you to either pay to not be for us to not collect your data, but also so that you don't receive ads, or you go for the free option, which they call pay or consent. Now, EU is saying that that free option is still not enough. They are arguing that they need another third, or the EU citizens have the right to have a third option where you will still receive, or you still don't pay for using Meta here meaning Instagram and Facebook, but then you will still not, Meta is still not allowed to have to collect data from your device or from your access of those platforms. So what is happening now is that they are trying to compel Meta to still reduce the level of content they collect, but also have users get the option of still not paying. Now, Meta has said, or Meta has come out to say, according to them, they are complying with the regulation, because they are saying, if you don't want us to collect your data, please, you can pay for the use the same way you pay for any subscription. If you pay for any subscription, usually you get the benefit of not enjoy or being rendered ads, or you just don't pay and allow us to use your data for targeting purposes. Now, people have different views about that, and I would just like to hear your thoughts, Vicky, before I can close with mine.
Um, I think as a business, I would be on the side of Meta because Meta,
In business.
when EU is advising Meta not to, like, to put the paid and the free option. I think let me just
Mm,
explain to understand, to help users or the viewers to understand. You see, Meta are advised to offer what we call contextual advertising as opposed to behavioral advertising. By this, I mean contextual advertising means you rely on users' demographics, the age, the gender, the location, as in the keywords that they type in, as opposed to the
mm,
behavioral advertising where you are looking at the behavior of the user on the platform, like you're monitoring their
mm,
behavior. What are they doing on the platform? For example, this week, if Steve was searching for cars, how many, as in he was looking for cars, oh, then Steve went ahead and also clicked through the links to the landing pages. Oh, he even made an inquiry. Or did he abandon the cart or not? So you see, that is studying the user and his behavior.
mm,
And I'll support the businesses, or I'll support Meta as a business because I know it's beneficial to me as a business. So by you saying that you need to seek users' consent, which Meta is complying, but they're saying it has to be almost free for me to opt out. But
Yes.
me as a marketer, I need to be able to get that data for me to get value for the money I pay to Meta. So I would really support the side of Meta. And then also, when they say that it's for fairness of the people who are competing on this platform, who are they talking about? Are they talking about gatekeepers? Because
Mm.
if they're talking about the gatekeepers, I'm sure all of them are in a position to be able to do this. So it's not that they're limiting, and if they just allow that to happen, all the gatekeepers will be able to do it, and it will be beneficial to them. And also for businesses, if
I
they're
think you
saying,
can clarify the gatekeeper
oh, sorry,
here,
yeah, the gatekeepers
because
are like
gatekeeper is
Meta.
usually
Yes,
people
gatekeepers.
take gatekeepers to have a very negative connotation.
Oh, yeah, they're called gatekeepers. Like they're Meta, Google, the
Just a
large
minute.
companies, Apple. So if they're saying competing fairly, like Meta competing fairly with Google, I'm sure both all of them want this a service, or it will be beneficial to all of them. And if they're talking about, because the whole point here is for fair competition. So if they're talking about us businesses competing fairly, when I look at my competitors, we are on these platforms. So we are going to benefit all of us. Like all of us are going to get the same service. It's not that Meta will give me a better service compared to my competitor. So we are all going to benefit. So I don't know how, as much as they want to put these restrictions, I think it is beneficial for business and even customers, unless you're not looking for that particular product to buy. But if I need a certain product and I'm
Mm.
able to get different adverts that that will help me make an informed decision and not only think about one company, I think it's fair for all. So I would say for my on my side, I support the side of Meta. However, they have to find ways of how they'll be able to communicate their give clear communication to the EU to understand. Again, with the advancement of AI, you will not expect this to be like, we will not keep restricting, because AI is supposed to improve on this. The targeting, when I'm doing adverts, I'm able to get the right target, I'm able to get efficiency in the cost of my advert. So eventually, this rule, even if it's to apply right now, in the near future, I'm sure they are going to be lenient or support, because it will be beneficial to the customers that they are trying to protect. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, for what I'm wondering is what the in my view the idea for the limitation on what they want to do in terms of these EU regulations, because the idea should be that of course you protect users data, but also at the same time you also have to ensure that you are balancing the scale to allow for also businesses to do their thing. Now when you insist on having regulations for businesses or for companies, let's call it tech companies in this case, to comply, then you are prioritizing quote unquote this user that you assume that is getting unfavorable or being rendered ads that they don't want for in favor of a clean user experience on the platforms. Now the problem for me is on those user platforms, there is a cost to running those platforms, and every platform or every tech application has its own way of making sustaining that platform, and part of it is through ads. So in my view, as a user, you should either be willing and able to pay for that service, and not receive ads like any other platform is doing, or you allow to you're using the app, you're getting some form of utility, otherwise you'll not be on that app, and then you start and then you accept to for that data to be used, because in any case most of that data is used to like you're talking about the contextual advertising, to help render better and more useful ads on your end. So I'm a bit conflicted in this sense, in this case, because I'm thinking, I'm not even conflicted actually. I want to retract that. I think it is the regulations are getting more and more prohibitive for businesses to carry out their operations, and they're not serving any person. In any case, this is not a monopoly that you're trying to control. If Meta, if you don't want to be rendered ads on Meta, you can as well go to any other platform. There are several other social media platforms that one would use, or one would engage in to get whatever utility it is that they're also getting from that platform. But anyway, that is that is that. And unless you have anything to add, I want us to move to something else.
Yeah. I think is as it is. So we just wait for
Yeah,
EU and Meta to resolve the issues. We hope that they'll be able to come to a conclusion that is favorable to all.
yeah, and I think also, just generally speaking, when you prioritize regulation over the business ability to run its operations, you enter into a space where you are discouraging innovation in your own country or in your own continent, but also you are affecting the ability of even your users, being your citizens, to also access better and more useful services, because you become now the connotation I was talking to you about, now the gatekeeper. But in this case, now they are now the gatekeeper of relevant and useful stuff. But anyway, they'll figure it out, and I'm sure because of the market size, these different entities will try to find a way into the into meeting each other halfway. Now, there's another thing that we're talking about, which is there has been a landmark ruling in terms of how content moderation is done on these digital platforms. So, if you are new to what content moderation means, is different companies in terms of different social media platforms, be it YouTube, X, or any other company, have historically been doing content moderation on their platforms. What this means is when let's say, for example, we are on YouTube. When YouTube team, content moderation team, finds or suspects that what you're doing is in violation to their view of what is right for their platform, then they technically have the right to pull down your content or shadow ban it, which basically means it is restricted. Its reach is restricted to users. Now, there are several companies and even states that actually went to the Supreme Court. And when I say Supreme Court here, I'm talking about the US Supreme Court. Actually, they didn't go to the Supreme Court. They went to several courts until it reached Supreme Court. But what they did is they said, by these social media platforms moderating this content, they are restricting people's ability to share their views and express their opinions and whatnot. And what they were arguing was that this content, these social media platforms are liberals, and they are what is happening is that they are limiting the expression of views of the conservatives. Now it went to the different several courts, and now it reached the highest court, which is the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court found that these platforms are not in violation of people's rights when they limit your content, or when they ask you to remove or ban your content on that platform. And uh, just to give you context on what the ruling was, and they said it is the argument was that, does it comply to the First Amendment? And the First Amendment in the US is basically the Bill of Rights Amendment, or what we call, talking about their freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press. So guys were arguing that it is affecting their freedom of speech, because then you can't express your opinions as you'd like to, because a platform would ban you. And even if you do content, it can even be taken now, pulled down, or marked as maybe misinformation. But then the Supreme Court and mostly other users argued that the idea here is that these platforms or these social media companies act as publishers. Now, because there is also the right of the publishers through the freedom of press, they also have the right to publish opinions, and they can select the opinions that are allowed to be published without government interference. So the Supreme Court argued that by us asking these platforms, by asking these platforms to by the government forcing these platforms to share everything, then they would be interfering, or government would be interfering with their right of press. Now that is where we are, and I'd just like to hear your reactions, Vicky, whether you support this view, or whether you're of a contrary opinion, especially with regard to content moderation on different platforms, not just YouTube, on all platforms, all social media, let's call it, platforms.
Um, I always have a problem with this It's called freedom of speech. Sometimes we tend to misuse it because I'm looking at me even in my house or even when I was young. As in there are rules that I had to abide when I was living in my father's house. Like as much as there are things that I would want to resist, I'm still in
Yes.
his house. Like if I want to make any changes or if I want to live the life the way I want, I can go to my own house and do that. So I'm looking at these social media platforms. They're the ones who came up with these platforms, and it became beneficial to us. And they thought it wise to put these rules and regulations. Without rules and regulations, or even without law in a country, people are want to go beyond. So like if they have these restrictions and we find that they are not serving us, I mean, me, I feel you can just as well go and try somewhere else, because they have the restriction, yes, and they're using the machine to be able to detect if you whatever you're saying or whatever you're putting, or if it's an advert, whatever you're advertising complies to their rules and regulations. So that's the work of the machine. And sometimes if you're restricted
So
or
you s-
you're penalized in the wrongly, you have the option to appeal. So when you appeal and they're able to see, I think that's where they even use a person to also be able to see if whatever you're stating that you have not you have complied, they'll be able uh, to take it. You'll not get the penalty. So I think the restrictions are good. They don't have so much, like it's not like it's breaching anything. It's just that they have their own boundaries, that if you are using the platform, then you have to comply.
it is
Yes.
breaching. That's why you have you are being shadow banned. According to them, you are breaching something.
Yes. Yes.
Otherwise, why would they pull down your content?
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. And if they feel your content is not compliant, and you feel it is, you can appeal, and then they're able to review again. So it's fair. To me, it's fair.
So you're saying freedoms have limitations. Uh, I think to me
Yes. Yes.
it's a very tight balance for a company to strike because everybody cannot have the same opinion. And I think when they say that previously there was that feeling that, especially on X and on even Meta, that um, they were very deliberate on trying to suppress people, especially with extreme, let's call them extreme political views and views about religion and whatnot. But I think, in my view, they have done a pretty good job. It's not the best; they have not done exceptional, but they have done a pretty good job, especially to try to ensure that there is some form of sanity in these platforms. Because yes, everybody can express their opinions. You can be a conservative, you can be, a liberal. You can have your opinions on sexual matters. You can have your opinions on, politics. But at the end of it all, it has to to suit the what the creators of that platform envision. Now, if you're saying something that, according to, of course, they'll put, because they have smart lawyers, they put it in their terms and conditions and their terms of service. But also, it helps to just ensure that these platforms are in some way usable for everyone, because remember, social media is
Yeah.
used by most people from 16 years all the way to 60 years, so the content has to reflect a majority of the users, and it's not a perfect system. But I think the Supreme Court was right, because their argument is that when you find that you are, and to be fair also, different platforms are known for different things, in the sense that if you are deeply you have very strong opinions over some things, you might find that maybe your content does not resonate with the users of X, but it resonates maybe with the users of YouTube. So the argument, or in my view, what they are saying is that this, by you not being able to maybe say your explicit stuff on YouTube, you can still find another channel to express your views, whether it can be Reddit, whether it will be on X or Meta, without somebody restricting you. So it's not like you have been gagged to say anything that you want to say, or to share your expression. You can as well move to another platform, because also, by design, different platforms have also curated themselves to serve different different users. So yeah, in my view, it's a very solid ruling, and it just says that if I am a social media platform, I am a company and I am a publisher. Now, if I am a publisher, then I have the right to decide what content goes on my platform. And yeah, in my view, it makes sense, and it balances both the company that is developing these platforms for people to use, but also balances the interest of all users. And just for the sake of just being accurate, it does not mean that these platforms explicitly ban everything that they don't agree with. It's not about
Yeah.
them banning what they don't agree with. It's just about them trying to regulate the different content that they feel is in line with the ethos of that company. So yeah, I'm also in agreement with this, and I was actually surprised that it was one of the few rulings that the Supreme Court, at least in the US, has done without dissenting opinions. There's usually several judges who have different views, but in this case, it seemed like they were all in agreement about this direction, and
Yeah.
saying that leave it to the social media platforms to decide what content they'll pull down and what content they'll have. But yeah, that was an interesting ruling, and of course, because it's the Supreme Court of the U.S. where these companies are domiciled, then by definition it means wherever the companies will be publishing their content, it applies all over, because these companies, most of them are domiciled in the US, and they conform to the regulations of the US. So it means even if you're in Kenya, if you're in Europe, chances are that that ruling allows so if it's Meta, if it's YouTube, if it's X, to moderate content depending on how their terms of service dictate. So yeah, that will be that.
And
I say
again,
groundbreaking because it will define how things will be happening going forward.
do you know it's the same users who will take you to court when they find something that is not appealing to them that will allow the freedom of speech? They're the same users who will rush
Yeah,
to
it's,
court to.
that's
to
the delicate balancing act.
yeah,
It is very hard to imagine that out of almost 9 billion people, about which 3 billion of them are on social media, it's very hard to imagine that all of them will agree with even a simple opinion that
yeah,
you would think common sense would prevail. So yeah, that's true.
yeah.
Now for the last story of the day, this is a bit technical, but made for advertising sites. What we call, these are websites that are quote unquote developed or made just running traffic into these sites. Now, these made for advertising sites have been found to be one of the biggest um, derailers of people who do engage in programmatic advertising, because they take quite a huge chunk of the ad revenue. Now, here is why it's a big problem. According to a report that was done by, or that was according to a news report by eMarketer, what they said was made for advertising websites that lack content and engagement account for just 2% of unique websites, basically a very small fraction of the entire website market. However, these platforms are accounting for as much as 11% of total programmatic spend. What this means is these platforms are a very small percentage of the actual websites on the internet, but they account for almost 11% of total ad spend. Now that is a huge chunk, especially knowing that these platforms are just made to drive traffic, so they are not even adding value to the advertiser. Now, there are several interventions that are trying to be done, especially by the platforms that render these sites. But it's a huge challenge that needs to be significantly addressed. What do you think, Vicky, about this analysis or this report, and what are some of the things that maybe you would see happening in this space, especially for people who render what we call programmatic advertising? This is people who render adverts on different websites.
I think this is a long battle and a thin line that might really take time, because it might really take time to get a solution, because anything that is cheap, people always run to anything that is cheap. And when you look at the adverts that are placed on the MFA sites, they are cheap in a way, because you're going to spend less to get more traffic. The only challenge is maybe we need to create more awareness, because most businesses are
But it's
not.
not quality traffic.
Yes, that's why I'm saying we need to create more awareness for businesses to understand that traffic doesn't mean you're going to make sales. You might get much traffic, but you're not able to get conversion because maybe they were using so much of fake news or clickbait, and now you're not able to. They go to the button, they go to your landing page, but now the information that was placed on the advert is different from what they're getting on the landing page. Therefore, they are not converting. So you're ending up spending much more money, which you thought was cheap, but you're not getting conversion. So I think this, for me, I would say empowering businesses or individuals who are doing adverts to be able to understand that this is not the way to go, because you're not going to benefit at the end of it all.
Yeah, I guess the empowering or the educating the end client is important. But in my view, it's most important for the guy who is actually running, because most of these programmatic ads are done through agencies, and these agencies are the ones that are supposed to help guide customers to look for quality eyeballs or quality engagement. And like you said, and I think we also covered this again in our previous sessions where we talked about the pitfalls of people in digital marketing, or the myths where people assume that the more traffic you have there, the better your conversion rate. And that's also that this report just
The
confirms that
more
indeed
sales.
that is not usually the case. So any person who is engaging in this space, especially even if you're doing through an agency, and the people who are actually running these ads, they need to help drive traffic to quality sites. and and the sad thing about what happens in this when this made for advertising sites get the chunk of the ad spend, it affects everyone, because the client will come and view the ad spend without getting conversion, and they will think that maybe this type of advertising, programmatic advertising, does not work. And it's because largely because they were also moving traffic to maybe the agency, because the metric is engagement and whatnot, moves traffic to that site. So it helps on their end to view it as if the site or that channel is not working. But at the end of it, most of the time it's affecting everyone, in the sense that the people who are running those the genuine platforms are also now not able to get increased traffic, because people now pull away from those sites and argue that maybe I should be doing a different type of targeting, just to ensure that my resources are better spent. But yeah,
Yeah.
um, that's it for that news segment. If you have any other additional comments, Vicky, you can say it before we wind up.
Hmm. I think this week the news were slow. Maybe there was a lot on the others.
And technical.
Yeah, they were a bit technical, but I think it's always good to help businesses understand different technical and simple stuff to help them in their business, even if they're not doing it, but they're able to have a good understanding when they're talking to their agencies.
Mm, yeah, makes sense. Anyway, that's it from us. Like I said, remember to like, share, subscribe, and leave your comment. Bye.
Bye.